Alright, thanks for clicking on the video. This is Gulpain, back with the Broken Sword retrospective. So, Broken Sword, I mean, one of my favourite games ever. Love this series. Have taken a while to talk about Broken Sword on my my YouTube hobby channel, but I've decided to go through and do a little retrospective of each game. So I'm going to play each game and basically give my thoughts on each game. But I'm also going to read out the story of each game as well for anyone that's unfamiliar with each entry in the series. So I will be reading the story from fandom.com. So I could do my own, writing of the story of Broken Sword, but it's already there, and I'm gonna cite my source as well. So no plagiarism here. So in this series of videos, then it's just going to be a basic retrospective of each game, but I'm actually going to look at each game, like each version of the game as well. Like, I played the first one on PlayStation 1, and there's actually a few different versions. There's a PC version. The PC version is very similar to the PlayStation version. There's a remastered version, and there's a version on the DS, a version on the Game Boy Advance, and then there's a Broken Sword Reforged. So Shadow of the Templars has a lot of different versions. So I'm going to play each one of those and then give my thoughts on it as well. So I'll start off here with the story of the original Broken Sword. As the game begins, the American tourist George Stobart witnesses a terrorist attack at a Café de la Chambre Verte in Paris, during which a clown steals an old man's briefcase and detonates a bomb. Soon after, George meets Nicole Collard, a journalist who is photographing the scene. George investigates the area to help Nico gather information about the attack. He finds the clown's discarded nose and learns that a man was seen escaping with a briefcase. After Nico discovers the address of a costume shop inside the clown nose, George learns from that shop's owner that the nose had been purchased by a man named Khan. George travels to the hotel where Khan is staying, where he obtains an ancient manuscript from Khan's hotel safe. After evading two hired thugs, Flap and Guido, George takes the manuscript to Nico, who deduces that it is related to the Knights Templar. In a nearby museum, George finds a tripod that is illustrated in the manuscript. He soon travels to the excavation site in Lochmarne, Ireland, where the tripod had been discovered. And there, he obtains a gem identical to one on the manuscript. After facing an infamous goat, George finds an entrance to a Templar chapel beneath the local castle ruins, where he discovers a mural of a hanged man with Montfaucon written underneath. George returns to Paris and learns from André Lobineau, a colleague of Nico, that Montfaucon is located in Paris. Flap and Guido attempt to steal the tripod from the museum, but they are beaten to the theft by Nico, who gives the artifact to George. In the sewers of Montfaucon, George spies on a secret meeting of people who claim to be the Templars, and he learns of their plan to find the Sword of Baphomet. After the group leaves, George uses the tripod and gem in the underground chamber to reveal the name of a village in Syria, Marib. He travels to the village and discovers that Khan has been looking for him. At a nearby rock formation called Bull's Head Hill, George finds a lens and deduces that it is represented on the manuscript as a crystal ball. He also discovers an idol with three bearded faces, Baphomet, and a Latin inscription that describes Britain. Khan arrives and holds George at gunpoint, but George manages to escape. Back in Paris, George learns from André that the manuscript mentions the Spanish de Vasconcelos family, who were once connected with the Templars. At the family's villa, George speaks to the family's sole surviving member, a Countess de Vasconcelos, who leads him to the de Vasconcelos mausoleum. There, George discovers the family's chalice, which the Countess entrusts to George. She asks him to find her missing ancestor, Don Carlos. In Paris, George uses the lens in the church at Montfaucon and discovers a hidden image of a burning man. In the church, George finds Don Carlos's tomb, which is inscribed with a series of biblical references. André reveals that an idol of Baphomet has been discovered in Paris, and George gains access to the excavation. Using the chalice, he discovers an image of a church with a square tower. George returns to the Countess and he discovers that the biblical references showing a secret area inside a well containing a chessboard mural with a river running through it. Compiling their clues, George, Nico and Andre decide that the Templars are going to Bannockburn, Scotland. George and Nico board a train, but she and an old woman in their compartment soon go missing. He reaches the conductor's carriage, where the old woman, Can in disguise, throws Flap out of the carriage. However, Can is shot and killed by Eklund. George and Nico reach the church in time to see the Grand Master of the Templars acquire a power from two huge Baphomet idols, the Sword of Baphomet, or the Broken Sword. After trying to tempt George to join their ranks, the Grand Master orders the couple to be killed, but they escape with the aid of explosives Can had given Nico before his death. The church explodes, killing Guido, the Templars, and presumably the Grand Master. The game ends with George and Nico's first kiss. So that's just a quick rundown of the story. So this one here is the PlayStation 1 version, which I encountered second. I played Broken Sword 2 first. So my sort of memories of original Broken Sword are sort of construed because I played Broken Sword 2 first. And then I remember seeing the trailer, which deserves its own sort of retrospective because it's such an awesome trailer. It made me want to play Broken Sword 1 so much. The voices and the music in it are just fantastic. But the PlayStation 1 version here, it's a really good version, but it's only when you sort of play the DS version or the remastered version on the Wii that you realize that the PlayStation 1 version doesn't really look very good. The voices as well, they're very sort of like muffled a bit. I suppose like it was in like 1996 or whenever the original Broken Sword came out, 95, I can't remember now, but yeah, it was a while ago. So well, a good while ago. So then obviously like the the audio had been improved, although I don't really think it was that improved in the remastered version for the Wii. And then the Reforged version I haven't played yet. I'm waiting for it to come out on physical before I actually buy it. But yeah, great memories of original Broken Sword. Absolutely top drawer. I support Newcastle Football Club as well, which is really handy because they meet Newcastle people in the train. Yeah, but introduced me to George and Nico. I was already familiar with George and Nico from Broken Sword 2, but Broken Sword 1 for me, I think they keep remaking Broken Sword 1 or remastering it, and I know why, because it's such an awesome, fantastic game. It got me interested in history, got me interested in the Templars and the Crusades and the different areas that you go to in France as well. So very good game for like a kind of I don't know, someone that's interested in this sort of stuff. So the next video I will talk more about Broken Sword 1. So thanks very much for watching the first installment of Broken Sword Retrospective. Adios. Alright, thanks for clicking on the video. This is Gulpain. Just back with the old Broken Sword Retrospective. And this is Broken Sword Shadow of the Templars for the Game Boy Advance. So I did play this a number of years ago and made a video on it, but I have to say I think I've kind of rethought a few of the things that I said was sort of like my initial thoughts on it. But like since this is a retrospective, I'm having a retrospective look at it. So I've played the game again, and basically I like it a lot more than I did years ago, because I was only after playing, or I was used to playing Shadow of the Templars Director's Cut, and then I played this after. And then if you play this after, I mean, it's not the same experience at all. Like, so it's a lot different. But if you take it as a Game Boy Advance game, considering the limitations of the hardware, then it's very, very impressive. And quite, like not a lot of point-and-click games on the Game Boy Advance. So this would be, I mean, I can't think of any. To my knowledge now on the Game Boy Advance, I'm trying to think here, there might be like Myst or something could be on the Game Boy Advance. That seemed to be on everything around the time, but I can't think of much on the Game Boy Advance comparable to Broken Sword. So this is an extremely ambitious port of the game, and this was actually, so it was developed by Revolution Software, but it was published by BAM Entertainment. And according to my research, quick research, and by research I mean Wikipedia, BAM Entertainment were going to publish Broken Sword, The Smoking Mirror on the Game Boy Advance as well, which would have been interesting as well. But apparently they they went under. The studio, the publishing studio closed, so they did not publish it. And there was also plans to publish Beneath the Steel Sky and Lord of Temptress as well, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. So Broken Sword 1 then becomes a sort of rarity, or a, like a real kind of special kind of game, for the Game Boy Advance, released, of course, in Europe in 2002. So I got my copy maybe 2019, 2020, so a good few years ago now. And I didn't play it on a Game Boy Advance, I played it on a DS, the old DS with the Game Boy Advance slot in the bottom. So that's how I played it. And then obviously I played it on an emulator as well to capture footage. And I think it doesn't look as good when you have it on a larger screen. I think when it's on the small screen, it looks fine. What I really like about it though is and I said this before, was the control system and the fact that the text is very big. So I play games now on the Switch, and I have to go, or even the Xbox 360 and stuff, or Xbox One, and you have to go and right up next to the TV to actually read the text. It's so annoying. It's so small. But this game, the text is nice and big, and the new interface as well. I really like it. It's for anyone that's a fan of Broken Sword, they should really check this game out. It's much more focused on music than the other games. Obviously, the music is very, very good in the PlayStation 1, PC, the phone version, or the remaster, sorry, the director's cut version of Broken Sword 1, Shadow Templars. But the Game Boy Advance and the DS version, they really kind of make you focus on the music of Broken Sword. So the sort of the piano numbers and the I don't know how you describe it, the surprise music, like when something kind of happens, there's like this kind of fantasy music that I think it was Barrington Falloon, I'm not sure on the pronunciation of his name, or her, composed the music. But it's really like you really get a new appreciation for the music of Broken Sword when you play it on the Game Boy Advance or the DS. More so the Game Boy Advance, because the DS has the nice music, but it's kind of a bit more, I don't know how you describe it, like like close to the CD, the DS music. But the Game Boy Advance one has the Game Boy Advance sound system, so it kind of sounds a bit different. It kind of sounds a bit like it would be on the Super Nintendo, or not the Mega Drive, but maybe the Super Nintendo, or like maybe Nintendo 64, something like that. The non CD based system. So you have this like very different kind of sound to the Game Boy Advance version, and it's really, really good. I really like it. So for me then, revisiting the game after kind of a few years, after initially not liking it and then revisiting again, I really like it now. I think it's a good way to play Broken Sword. It's not my favourite way to play Broken Sword. That would be the Wii version, the director's cut. That would be the best way to play Broken Sword 1, with the additional content and kind of the extra scenes with Nico, and the kind of the character portraits as well. That's really nice. But this one has a great interface. You actually walk George around the screen as well. There's no point in a clicking in this. Well, there's semi points in a clicking. You walk George around, and when you go up to a character, the mouth appears and you can talk to them, and then you can choose your items, but they're done in like an arrow system where you have to click through them instead of like they're all on screen. So yeah, it's kind of strange, but the backgrounds are very faithful, the scenes are very faithful, the animations are very faithful as well. It's a extremely faithful port, and it's a very interesting way to play Broken Sword. So to revisit the music section, then the music does a lot of the world building here, and the main crux of the game, because without the voice acting, I think Broken Sword loses a lot without the voice acting, because George and Nico's voice actors, I mean, it's been the same George, for 20 something years now, or close to that anyway. And I think Nico's had a couple of different voice actors. But yeah, George is the same, so he's sort of like iconic to the series. But not having the voices in the game, it is a big letdown, because one of the main draws for me for Broken Sword is like to listen to the story, as well as the kind of the puzzle system. So you do lose a large element, but what you do gain is this like appreciation for the fantastic music in Broken Sword, and sort of like a renewed appreciation for me, because after I kind of played through the game particularly like the first couple of hours when you hear a lot of the, the music, and then it's kind of repeated, in the rest of the game. But when you hear the music, it's like, I don't know, I can't explain it. It's very kind of surreal, because for me, I was more focusing on the voice acting than the music when I played the game first. I did appreciate, the music in Broken Sword 1 and Broken Sword 1 Remaster, etc. But because you don't have the voices in this, you're kind of, the music, you're really relying on the music to kind of set the tone and set the mood. And it does a great job of it as well. Obviously, sometimes there's silence, or sometimes there's the same song played. But yeah, just fantastic music. The graphics do take a bit of a downgrade. It's tough to see what's going on, and obviously I don't know, the characters look smaller than normal. That shouldn't be though, because the backgrounds look the same, but I don't know, they look just kind of less detailed. Obviously, it's the limitations of the hardware has to be taken into account there. But still though, Broken Sword on the Game Boy Advance is a fantastic game. It's a shame they didn't release Broken Sword 2 on the Game Boy Advance as well, because that would have been a great way to play it. I know you don't have the voice acting, obviously, and you don't have the point and click system, so you have to walk George around. So it's more like actually Broken Sword 3, the way you walk George around the screen and then interact with objects. So maybe that's, I don't know, maybe with the Game Boy Advance they just couldn't do the arrow, and it was a kind of a better way to control the character, or maybe it was just a practical thing where they thought like more players would understand the game better if if they could physically move the character around the screen, as opposed to just kind of, like it just looks like backgrounds. So Broken Sword on the Game Boy Advance, just replaying it again, great game. Obviously I know what's going to happen, because I know the story, and I know kind of roughly the main beats of the story. But great to experience it a different way, and just really just to focus in on the music. Just a fantastic journey through Broken Sword again with the music. So if you played Broken Sword on the Game Boy Advance, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios. Alright, thanks for clicking on the video. This is Gulpain, just back with a quick Broken Sword retrospective. And in this series, I'm replaying the original Broken Sword games. Well, the original series games. There's 5 in the series, and then there's also a fan-made game, which I've never actually played and finished. It's only a couple of hours long, I think. Maybe 2 or 3 hours long, but I've never actually finished that one. So that one, I'm looking forward to that. But that's not an official Broken Sword game, that's just a fan-made one, but a very excellent fan-made one. So in the previous video I went through the story of Broken Sword 1 and the just a quick look at the PlayStation 1 version. So the PlayStation 1 version is one that I played a few times, but the one that I really played a lot was the remaster on the director's cut for the Nintendo Wii. And I remember playing this in university. And I've said it before, but my housemate, she used to love when Inspector Moo came on. She loved his voice. So the appeal of Broken Sword, you can play it yourself, but you can also kind of sit and watch, because it's such a kind of an entertaining game. So the PlayStation 1 version, I said in the previous video, had sort of like the visuals are like, they're excellent. Like I love the visuals of Broken Sword, the graphics. But the remastered version, it put it into 16:9, but it also put the character portraits when the characters are in dialogue, which I think kind of adds a lot to the game. The previous game had just the characters talking, and they were quite not overly pixelated, but they were a little bit pixelated, but you could still make out their facial expressions and all that. But the remaster looks so much better, obviously, it's like 10 15 years later, so it should look better. But I still like the charm of the original PlayStation 1 version. But there's the sound as well. I don't know if they did something to the sound. It sounds a little bit better, but then I imagine particularly the PlayStation 1 version, the audio might have been condensed in the original release, and it kind of did sound a bit not the best, like, but it didn't sound stereo, if that makes sense. It was good, like, but I don't know, maybe they needed to increase the bass or whatever, but it's still pretty good. I don't know the exact ins and out of it. But yeah, all I remember is when I was younger, just playing Broken Sword 1, and then I remember my PlayStation 1 broke, and I needed to get like the disc cleaner, and I was stuck in a part of Broken Sword 1 or 2 for ages, and then I just wanted to get the PlayStation 1 cleaned so I could play Broken Sword again. So fantastic memories with it. But the upgrade here, you can see that the backgrounds are the same, the animations are the same, or they seem to be the same to me anyway. They're just kind of done in a higher resolution. They've obviously changed the interface a little bit, because it looks a lot clearer. The icons, and also the PlayStation 1 icons, they seem to be, well, they were a kind of a different location, but they seem to be kind of, you kind of didn't really know what they were. Well, you did a little bit, but you kind of, you definitely know what the things here are. In the remastered version as well, there's a lot more Nico, which is great, because I think Nico's a great character. She's like, Broken Sword is George and Nico, to me anyway. I don't think there's, kind of, they are the two main characters in the game, and I always thought that you should control Nico more anyway when I was in the original game, because she seems to be, I mean, she's introduced as a photographer at the start of the game, and then when you go to her house to investigate the manuscript, you do get a bit of backstory on Nico from the flower seller that's kind of set up her stall outside her house, and saying like that she's alone a lot. So I think Nico should have had more. Now, she does have a lot more in the remaster, but if you read reviews of the remaster, a lot of people say that it doesn't add a lot to the game. The remastered portions where you start off with Nico and she narrates the start, and then you have like a section with Nico where she goes to the professor's house, and basically talks to, or sorry, not the professor. She goes to someone's house at the start and talks to them, and then you see Khan as well. I think it's Khan anyway, who's basically dressed up as a mime, and there's a bit more story to it, but not really kind of that's vital, or that was missing from the first game, because I don't think the first game kind of had any problems. Well, not to me anyway. I don't think it had any problems, to be honest. I suppose the goat puzzle, and there is a couple of bits, particularly with the second game, were very difficult, but obviously today it doesn't really matter, because you have like a guide. You can just, if you get stuck in a game, you can look it up, and like 10 seconds later you have the solution. Like, but we didn't have that luxury back in the olden days when I was a small child, and we had to basically just stare at the screen until we figured it out. I remember checking every like pixel, like every part of the screen, trying to figure out what to do, and clicking on every item, so you'd hear every single piece of the dialogue, because there's a lot of dialogue in Broken Sword that you'd never hear unless you like asked someone to look at the nose or like you have like random items, and you'd like ask someone to look at it, and they say like that's nothing to do with me, or George has different voices, or not different voices, different voice acting for the items that you probably never hear. So it was kind of like advantageous in that sort of scenario. The so in the last section I did the story. In this section I'd like to talk about the graphics. So the story is for me what's best about Broken Sword, but a lot of the times in Broken Sword you kind of forget about all the locations you visit, and truly the trailer that was for Broken Sword, the trailer that I remember anyway, with I don't know who the guy is in it, his voice was awesome, and it really made me want to play original Broken Sword. But the visuals in it and the locations are fantastic. I mean, I feel like if I went to Montfaucon, it would look roughly like what's there. I don't actually know, but I'd like to go there and see if it looks like it. But then I'd probably want to go into the sewer and do what George does. But I would prevent myself from doing that. So the original locations, they're so iconic. Even the when you start off, you're at the cafe in the start of it, and then you meet the guy who's doing the work. So those scenes are okay, but I really like when you get to like the church, and you have to talk to the priest in there, or when you get to the Divas Concella's house, there's like a panning of the camera as George walks over to the left, which happens in sort of Ireland as well. It happens in a few different bits of it. It's very kind of like, I don't know, it's an old fashioned kind of a tool. You don't see a lot of that kind of that pan anymore. It's more sort of like, 5 second cuts and all that. But I won't get into that sort of thing now. But basically, it's a very kind of cinematic way of looking at Broken Sword. So the visuals are very, I don't know. It's almost like the people that kind of made the game, did they scout locations, or did they just know what these certain places look like? Like I've always used, whenever I'm speaking about Broken Sword, use Ireland as an example. They absolutely get Ireland like, bang on. There is like stereotypes they use as well, but the stereotypes that they use are actually true. Like the section where you go to Ireland, you go to like a small village and there's a pub, and then they're excavating. So there's a guy like, who's his truck or his tractor or whatever with all the hay in it is stuck up against the wall so that George can get over and into the archaeological site. And then there's a goat, and then there's a story of a goat. There's a ghost story, and the guys in the pub, they're like really accurate as well. I mean, if you walked into a pub in Ireland, you would meet, a very similar sort of barfly gentleman at the pub, as you see in the section in Ireland. So it's very representative, very good. The graphics are excellent. It's like exactly like you'd see from a pub in Ireland. And then the graphics in England are good as well, although it's not that much. You kind of go to the train, and then you're in sort of like in Scotland, so not as detailed as in Ireland. The other games, you do go to Glastonbury, and you do visit more locations in England, but this game, it's mainly Paris is a big section, then the return to Paris and the hospital. The Spanish section is a big section. That's a really nice section, but it's not as it doesn't feel as big as Ireland or Paris. Like Ireland, you just visit one street and then the archaeological site, but there's a lot of different like locations that you visit and camera angles that you look at. So it seems like there's a lot more sort of going on in Ireland. Paris as well, you visit a good few places in Paris. They're very fond of Paris, the developers in this game, the artists, Charles Cecil and Co. And yeah, love those sections. They're absolutely fantastic. The game can be completed in around about 6 hours, I think. I've seen a long play. I've never actually like tried to speed run it or anything, but I've seen like a long play. As I'm like in my job, I'll just put on the long play of Broken Sword while I'm doing something. So that's pretty good. But yeah, the sections added then for Nico, they don't seem as well. I suppose like you're kind of I'm looking at it from rose tinted glasses, but they don't seem as iconic as the original sections. So Ireland is very good, Paris is very good, Spain is okay, but it's only in a small area. You're only in the Divas Conchella's house and the grounds, and then you go underground. So it's not like a kind of a big area. As opposed to Ireland and Paris. Also, when you go to Syria, and that's a sort of bigger area as well, because you're in like quite a bustling town, kind of town village area. Then you're in the outskirts of Syria, and you're in the Club Marib as well. So there's a few different locations to visit. So I think they kind of skimped on Spain a bit here, to be honest. But it's just, I know you can't. There's only so much you can fit in the game as well. But yeah, for me, it took me like a long time to finish the game the first time I played it. And even if I was to play it now, I wouldn't be able to remember all the puzzle solutions. There is like hints in it as well, which I try never to use. But then, you kind of like, it's just the hint is there, so you can do it, look at it to solve the puzzle. But I try not to do it. The remastered version, then I'm not sure if I think I'd rather play the remastered version on the Wii. If I had to play a version of Broken Sword, it would be the remastered version on the Wii, because it looks the best. Obviously there's I wish they would bring out like a Switch version of Broken Sword, or a PS5 version with all of the games one after another, so you could just play them on one disc. I do have the PC version, which has Broken Sword 1, 2 and 3, and but that's the original version without the remastered sections. So I think I'd rather play it with Nico, the sections with Nico, and the kind of the extra like quality of life improvements that this game has, like the big character portraits. Although I don't really think the character portraits, I don't think some of them actually look like the characters that much. They do, like, obviously they're that's what they're supposed to look like, because that's what the artists have drawn them to be. But when you look at the sprites on the screen, they don't look as much like the character portraits. Or maybe it's just me, the way I remember the characters, they're sort of in my head. So then when I look at the portraits, they don't really look like, they're sort of like they're too kind of detailed, for me anyway, because I'm used to looking at sort of like the very tiny heads on the screen. So that is a little bit about just my thoughts on Broken Sword 1. If you've played Broken Sword 1 Remaster, let me know what you think of the game in the comment section below. If you like the extra sections with Nico and the extra sections with George and the quality and the sort of the graphical improvements, or do you prefer the original CD, PlayStation 1 CD version, or the PC version as well? So let me know, and thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios. Alright, thanks for clicking on the video. Welcome back to the Broken Sword retrospective. So we've already looked at the PlayStation 1 version, the Wii version, the Game Boy Advance version, and this is the Nintendo DS version of Broken Sword, The Shadow of the Templars. Now all the versions seem to have sort of something different, or like there's not like well, the PlayStation 1 and the PC version are very similar. There's just a bit of a graphical difference. I think there seems to be a better graphics on the PC than the PlayStation 1. But the the director's cut version has these character portraits and also like a different interface. So for the DS version then, it seems to be, for me, it seems to be virtually identical, very, very similar to the director's cut for the Wii, apart from it has obviously the two screens, so the character portraits are above, and there is some kind of like touch screen stuff as well you can do, like you can touch the bottom of the screen. My wife actually played through the whole game like this, so for her Broken Sword 1 is this game. So she doesn't know the voice acting. Obviously she's watched me play it a couple of times, so she knows there is voice acting, but yeah, so obviously for me, I played Broken Sword 1 on the PlayStation 1, so I'm very much accustomed to the voice acting. I did play the DS version after the Wii version as well, so having the voices not in it is a big downgrade. But as I said with the Game Boy Advance version as well, the music is much more kind of prevalent, or much more of a, like not a character in it, but much more of a kind of a draw to the game for me. So I played through the DS version. It's almost, I can't really see much difference between the DS version and the director's cut version, apart from the two screens. Obviously that's a big difference, and you can use the touch screen as well at the bottom, but there's not much difference at all. So in this retrospective, because this game is so similar to the Wii version, I'm going to go over the characters. So there's two main characters in Broken Sword, two protagonists, George Stobart and Nicole Collard. So I will read now from the Broken Sword fandom page about George Stobart and Nicole Collard, just in case anyone's not familiar with the two main characters. So Sir George Stobart, born 1968 in Idaho, United States, is the main character in the Broken Sword adventure game series by Revolution Software. George currently lives in New York City and works as a bail bondsman. He is a patent lawyer by profession, although struggles to find work within such a competitive industry. He enjoys travelling and is fascinated by history. George is estimated to be 28 years of age as of Broken Sword 4. His trademark appearance consists of blonde hair, cut short in the back but left long in the front, as well as jeans with incredibly deep pockets and a blue-green jacket over a white t-shirt. Little is known about George's private life. From conversations throughout the series, we know that he is a graduate of law, which he studied at either the University of California or the University of Idaho. In Broken Sword 2, it is revealed that George has lived with his parents in Oakland, California. He has worked in California at his father's law firm and New York City as a bail bondsman. He is an only child, and his father passed away before the first game. He has a very sarcastic outlook on life, with a dry wit and casual approach to things around him. This does serve him well in the crisis though, as he can think fast and doesn't panic. So George's personality, he is described as a very friendly, positive individual who always tries to see the good in any situation. Although good-natured and honest, he could also be considered nosy. As a child, he was very sensitive, to the point of being scared of the crocodile of Peter Pan and the evil queen of Snow White, to the point that his mother took him out of the movie theatre. He has a love of pirates and a strong dislike of clowns and mimes. Being involved in law means that he does have a high sense of justice. In this aspect of his character that drives him to uncover the events of Shadow of the Templars. He will talk to anyone and will press matters until there is nothing left to press. This can and will get him into trouble on many occasions. Unlike many other heroes, George chooses to use his wits and his mouth to get him out of trouble, rather than his fists. Comments George will most commonly hear on his travels include, "What do you think you're doing? Don't touch that or put that back down." To which George often finds himself replying, "I can explain everything." George is able to read Latin and is blessed with a memory like a steel trap. Throughout his adventures, he has impersonated a police detective, earning him the nickname the Sewer Jacques, has impersonated a doctor, has played the role of a stuntman, has stolen several priceless artifacts, has been knocked unconscious by a large wooden salmon, and travelled all over the world to many different countries. He has been arrested at least twice and has never been killed at least 12 times, nearly been killed at least 12 times, a fact he is not afraid to bring up in conversation. George also claims that he could write an entire book on secret doors, referring to the fact that he has solved numerous puzzles in order to open hidden door mechanisms, both ancient and modern. And I will now read from the Nicole Collard fandom page to give an introduction to the Nicole Collard character. Nicole is the female protagonist of the Broken Sword series. At the start of Broken Sword, The Shadow of the Templars, Nicole Collard was a freelance photojournalist for a newspaper called La Liberté. She lives at 361 Rougerie in Paris. Nicole is described as a beautiful young woman with brown eyes, light skin and short black hair, although it is blue in the third installment. She moved to Paris and became a freelance photojournalist. Nicole doesn't really like her job because of her boss, since he is always so picky about what story she is doing for the newspaper. Nico's dream is to write an amazing article for the newspaper that will make her famous and give her a chance for a big break. Nico met George Stobart in front of Café de Chandelier Verte after the explosion. To find out the mystery behind the incident, they decided to cooperate and work as a team. During the course of the game, the two fell in love and began a relationship. Before the events of Broken Sword 2, The Smoky Mirror, George suddenly moved back to America to be with his dying father, without letting Nico know. She was devastated, thinking that he had ended their relationship, but as soon as he managed to contact her again, he told her that was not the case. In Broken Sword, The Sleeping Dragon, their relationship didn't work out, and they decided to remain as friends. During the course of the game series, their romantic relationship is on and off, though they remain close and eager to help each other. Thinking that they are related, and there is a global conspiracy to cover them up. So that was a quick introduction to the two characters, George Stobart and Nicole Collard. I read from the fandom there, the wiki fandom, but there was a couple of and I've been using that as a source as well for my information on this game, and I realized that there is some grammatical errors and spelling mistakes, so that's not good. But I wonder if that page has been transferred from a different language, because it looks kind of it looks like it has been transferred from a different language. Oh well, I'm learning a lot on this journey of mine, this Broken Sword retrospective that I'm going on. But it is excellent to go back and play the original Broken Sword. Obviously, Broken Sword Reforged is out, and I haven't played that yet, but I will play that after I'm playing all the other games first. Obviously I have to play, all the way to 5. So thank you very much for listening. If you played Broken Sword on the Nintendo DS in the on the handheld, let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, adios. Alright, welcome back to the Broken Sword retrospective, and this video we're going to be looking at, well, I'm going to be talking about, not we, just me, Broken Sword 2. So in this video I'm going to go over the plot of Broken Sword 2 and just the differences with the other games. So Broken Sword 2, the differences between Broken Sword 1 and 3, 4 and 5. And continuing the retrospective. So let me know if you've played Broken Sword 2 in the comment section below. So let's get the plot on the go here. So 6 months after the events of the Shadow of the Templars, protagonist George Stobart and his girlfriend Nico Collard visit an archaeologist named Professor Bertrand Ubier to learn about a mysterious Mayan stone Nico uncovered while researching a newspaper story. At Ubier's home, they are ambushed by 2 Central Americans who kidnap Nico, tie George to a chair and set the building ablaze. George unties himself and puts out the fire. He contacts Andre Lobino, who reveals that Nico had suspected that something would go wrong and had left the stone with him. Lobino tells him of a gallery owner who can tell him more about Mayan art. George discovers that Ubier supplies the gallery with Mayan artifacts, which he imports through a company named Condor Transglobal. Following this lead, George finds the 2 Central Americans who kidnapped Nico. One of them, whose name is later revealed to be Pablo, is shown threatening and berating the other, later revealed to be called Titipoco. George knocks Pablo unconscious and discovers that Condor Transglobal has links with Cuermonte City in Central America. He also frees Titipoco, who has been manacled by Pablo. George finds Nico, who reveals that, while trying to expose a drug ring run by a man named Karzak, she was sent the stone instead, prompting her to arrange the appointment with Ubier. The 2 escape the warehouse and retrieve the Mayan stone from Lobino. Afterwards, they go to Cuermonte City in hopes of finding Condor Transglobal. They find the city under dictatorial rule by Senora La Presidente Graciento, and learn that the town contains no Condor Transglobal offices. The 2 meet Professor Ubier, who is talking to the Chief of Police, General Raul Graciento, about a mysterious chart. George confronts Ubier about his girlfriend's abduction, but the professor claims he knows nothing, and that he has not been in Paris recently. George decides to help a CIA agent, Duane, free a local agitator, Miguel, from jail by distracting General Graciento. Afterwards, he prepares to detonate the jail wall but is arrested in the process. George gets Duane to tie a rope to the bars and pull the wall down with his truck, alerting General Graciento. Miguel escapes and Nico and George flee downriver on a boat. However, the boat sinks after being attacked by a helicopter. George wakes up the next morning on the riverbank and finds a treehouse belonging to a Christian missionary named Father Hubert. Hubert has been nursing Nico back to health, but she has suffered a snakebite and requires special medicine. He takes George to the local Mayan village as he believes the village shaman will be able to help. George shows his Mayan stone to the shaman, who explains that hundreds of years ago, Mayan shamans had trapped the god Tezcatlipoca inside a mirror. However, he was so powerful that he would inevitably escape, so they created 3 stones that contained the power to keep him imprisoned. Before they could be put in place, they were stolen by explorers, one by a Spanish pirate named Captain Frederick Ketch, who hid it in the Caribbean, one by an English ship which took it to England, and one by a Spanish explorer who took it back to Spain. The third of these stones was in Nico and George's possession. George returns to the treehouse and cures Nico with medicine from the shaman. Shortly thereafter, the 2 separate to find the 2 remaining stones. Nico tracks a stone down to a museum in London, England, where she encounters but does not recognise a Professor Ubier. After he leaves, the stone is discovered to be missing and the museum is locked down. Nico escapes via an abandoned subway station and finds Ubier on a boat in the Thames with Karzak. Nico witnesses Karzak killing Ubier and then sneaks in, takes the stone and escapes. Meanwhile, George tracks the remaining stone to a small museum in the Caribbean. Following subtle clues left by Captain Ketch, George learns that the stone was left on the nearby Zombie Island. George explores Zombie Island and finds that a butchered remake of Treasure Island is being filmed. He poses as a stuntman to gain access to the place where the stone is being kept, but gets captured by Pablo and his men to be used as a sacrifice to Tezcatlipoca. Nico travels back to Cuermonte and saves George. Together with Titipoco, they enter Tezcatlipoca's pyramid. After they reach the central room, Karzak frees the ancient god there. However, Tezcatlipoca promptly kills Karzak. President Graciento appears and attacks Titipoco, and their struggle sends them over a cliff. Raoul, realizing that he is expendable to his mother, chooses to save Titipoco as President Gracianto falls to her death. The protagonists place the stones into their respective slots, which causes Tezcatlipoca to be pushed back into the mirror. George and Nico briefly celebrate, and the final cutscene fades into the credits. So that's just a quick rundown of the story of Broken Sword 2. So if you've never played the game, spoiler alert, view there. And that story was from Fandom, the website, the fan-made website on Broken Sword 2, and that was a good rundown of the story. So basically, Broken Sword 2, the differences between Broken Sword 2 and the previous games, it's very similar to the first game, Broken Sword 1, in the art style. It's almost, I always considered Broken Sword 2 to be just like, you know, to be the same game as Broken Sword 1, just like a continuation. So like Broken Sword 1 Part 2, I think it is, because it's very, very similar. Aesthetically, it's very similar. You could say it's a bit more detailed, but I think it's very, very similar to the first game. Like the third game, the fourth game, and the fifth game are significantly different than the first two. The first two are they're very, very similar. Just in like art, in the the art style and the controls and the kind of sort of input and stuff. So they're, I don't know, I think they're so similar. They could be like just a continuation. It's kind of like when New Super Mario Brothers and New Super Mario Brothers 2 are like very, very similar. Whereas, you know, like back in the olden days, you'd have like the first game and then the second game would be like vastly different than the first game. But I'm really happy that Revolution Software went with a very similar, like maybe the same engine or the same artists or the same directors, or you know, a very similar sort of mindset, because I played Broken Sword 2 before Broken Sword 1, and I finished Broken Sword 2, loved it, couldn't get enough of Broken Sword 2, and then I found Broken Sword 1 then. So it was kind of, it wasn't like going back and having like a really inferior sort of game. It was more like this, the same game. Like if you play Resident Evil 2 and you go back to Resident Evil 1, they're very, very similar, but you can see how Resident Evil 2 is far superior to Resident Evil 1. Even in like, you know, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest is very different to Castlevania 1, or Mario Brothers 2, you know, Mario Brothers 2, Mario USA is very different to Super Mario Brothers 1. I know the whole story that, you know, the lost levels or was originally supposed to be Mario 2, but that was like, you know, very, very similar to Mario Brothers 1. So something akin to what's happening here in Broken Sword. Obviously, there is more animation in Broken Sword 2, I think there is anyway, and the backgrounds seem to be more detailed, and you seem to be able to interact with the backgrounds a bit more as well in Broken Sword 2 than in Broken Sword 1. But I don't know, and I feel that Broken Sword 1 is longer than Broken Sword 2 as well, but that might be because I spent longer at Broken Sword 1 than I did at Broken Sword 2. For me, when I played Broken Sword 2 first, it was in the 90s. It was when it was out first. I was very young. I didn't have a guide or anything, and I got stuck in it for ages. I got stuck in the bit in the Glee's Gallery where you have to put the absinthe into the guy's glass. What's his name again? He appears in Broken Sword 5 as well, and I can't remember his name now. But yeah, I had to put the absinthe into his glass, and I got stuck for ages, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know you had to put the did you put something in my drink? I didn't know you had to put the absinthe into it, so I was just going around searching every pixel of every screen trying to find out what to do, and eventually I figured it out, but it took me ages. It was around the time where I was stuck for like a year on Shining Force 2 as well. I'll always remember on where to put the what is it, the plank of wood in Shining Force 2. Anyway, that is Broken Sword 2. Just a quick word about Broken Sword 2. I'll be back in the next episode of the Broken Sword Retrospective, and in the next episode I'm going to talk more about Broken Sword 2, and we're going to look at the this was the PlayStation 1 version here, and we're going to look at the remaster of Broken Sword 2 and talk more about Broken Sword 2 in general. So thanks very much for watching, and see you next video. Adios. Alright, thanks for clicking on the video. It's Gulpain back again with the Broken Sword Retrospective, and today we are talking about, well, I am talking about Broken Sword 2. So in this series of videos, I've basically, one of my favourite series of games is Broken Sword. I absolutely love it. I played it when I was a child. Well, a little, maybe like, I don't know, 8 or 9, I can't remember, but absolutely loved it, loved the story, loved the setting and all that. And I actually became a history teacher, and I think playing Broken Sword is actually partly to blame for my sins, partly to attribute to my later career, I believe, because the history aspect of Broken Sword is all about the Templars, in the first game anyway, and in the second game then it's more sort of like South American stuff, which I kind of later ended up teaching as well, the Golden Age of Spain it was called. But yeah, just a top quality game. So in this video then, the previous video, I looked at the PlayStation 2 port of Broken Sword, and I just went over the story of Broken Sword 2. And a little bit about how Broken Sword is different to Broken Sword 2, sorry, is different than the other Broken Swords. And I think I basically came up with the point that Broken Sword 1 and 2 are so similar, they could be like, you know, part 1 and part 2 of a game. And obviously Broken Sword 2.5 then would be very similar to those as well. Once you get to Broken Sword 3, 4 and 5, they're very different. They're 3D, they're 3 and 4 particularly. Well, 3 you move around the character yourself, and also the differences between like the different ports of Broken Sword 1 on the Game Boy Advance and the DS. Those are the control systems, they differ on some of them, not so much, only on the Game Boy Advance version really. But Broken Sword 2, so in this retrospective, what I wanted to do was just sort of play the games again after all these years, and just kind of see if I feel different about them, or see if all the emotion and the nostalgia is, you know, coming back after all these years, and it is. I've always said that Broken Sword 1 is my favourite, but there's something about Broken Sword 2. It's the first one that I played of the Broken Sword series. I played 2, and then I had the trailer for Broken Sword 1, and I was watching the trailer for ages after I finished Broken Sword 2, you know, to see what it was like, and I was so excited about going to Ireland, the place of my people, and you know, kind of exploring that new adventure and all that. It was just absolutely great for, like, you know, a child or a very young person to kind of experience this kind of adult sort of a game, because like this is way different than like Mario or you know, even Castlevania and other series that I was mad into. This is way different. This is a lot more like of a thinking kind of a game. I don't know what. Yeah, I wasn't really. I only had like when I was younger, I had like a PS1, Mega Drive, and then obviously when I got a bit older, then, you know, I had PS2 and Xbox 360 and stuff. But I never realized this genre of game was so big on the PC. With the you know, the King's Quest games or the Monkey Island games. I never played Monkey Island until the PlayStation 2. I've still only played one Monkey Island game as well. So I think this kind of genre of point and click adventure games, I never got into it at the time in the 90s or the noughties, when there was a lot of point and click games out. I don't think point and click games are, maybe there's a renaissance of them now, but I don't think they're popular anymore. I think they've sort of morphed into like the Telltale games and Tales from the Borderlands, that sort of style of game where you move around the character, but it's like very narrative driven, and there's not so much focus on picking up items and solving puzzles in those games, though there's a little bit, like, but not as much as these games. These games are like particularly like Broken Sword, Monkey Island, Martin Mystery, that sort of style. I don't know, it's point and click interface, and it's a point and click adventure game. But yeah, there seems to be like a point in time when these games were like super popular, or relatively popular, and then they kind of went out of popularity. Not for me, because I've loved them ever since. I'm still buying the point and click games. I recently bought the one for the Xbox 360, Grey Matter, which I'm loving. Like, so I love the slow pace of these games, and you can relax, and you could just kind of, you know, follow the story, and then there might be some references you might have to go look up as well, and it's very kind of character driven. You know, the characters are kind of deep and they have like story with them. Well, Broken Sword does anyway. Some of the other games don't, I have to say. Broken Sword is probably the pick of the bunch for me. A lot of people would say Monkey Island. Monkey Island, though, is a lot more comedic. I think, or it's kind of, I don't know, it's a lot more slapstick, and not as Broken Sword kind of straddles the line between like serious and comedy very well. There is a lot of funny bits in it, you know, like you're not going to wet yourself laughing, like, but there is a lot kind of one-liners, and there's running jokes in it as well, particularly with like Dwayne. who's supposed to be a CIA agent, and his wife Pearl, who they're always seem to be on holiday when you meet them. And the characters that you meet as well, it's all done in a serious style, but the characters that you meet, like, they're so, like, so a lot of them are very stereotypical of the country that they're in, or a lot of the times when you go to like different places, it is very stereotypical. But like, I don't know, I can't speak for like South American people or Spanish people or French people whether Broken Sword is like overly stereotypical about their country, but I can't speak from an Irish perspective. And in Broken Sword 1 they got Ireland spot on. It is exact. It's the stereotype is too, it's not even a stereotype, the way they portray Irish people. It's actually like exact. So the place that you go in Ireland is the same place I'm from, or very, very similar to the place I'm from in Ireland. So I can say that that's exact, but I'm not sure about the other places, if they're over stereotyping, or, you know, if they've just kind of gone there, the developers, and sat down for a while. So I can imagine Charles Cecil like sitting down in a coffee shop in France, just sort of like, you know, taking notes about what's happening, and then kind of portraying that at the start of Broken Sword 2, or Broken Sword 5, or Broken Sword 1. Yeah, the differences between Broken Sword 1 then, between Broken Sword 2 and the other games, is you don't seem to, there doesn't seem to be, to me anyway, as much of an emphasis on kind of backtracking in Broken Sword 2. It seems to be shorter than the other games as well. You sort of start off in France, and then you go to South America, but Nico goes to England, George goes to South America, and then you're back in Europe, but you don't really go to like the different kind of locations as much as you do in the other games, I think anyway. I know in Broken Sword 3 you spend a lot of time in England, and you go to sort of, I might be getting mixed up now because I've played all the games very recently, but I think in Broken Sword 3 or 4 you go to Morocco as well, and United States. But predominantly this game, it doesn't seem to be, I don't know, maybe it was the way they presented the travel in Broken Sword 1, or maybe I was just stuck for so long in Broken Sword 1 that I kept going from like Paris to Ireland, you know, to Spain. I just didn't know what to do. I thought I forgot an item or something, or because I wasn't following guides when I played the Broken Sword 1 or Broken Sword 2. I basically figured out the whole thing myself. So similarly when I play Broken Sword 5, I haven't used the guide for it at all. A couple of times I've used the hints because, you know, I don't know, I just don't like being stuck for ages and ages anymore, where I'm like, you know, clicking on every sort of pixel or walking around to everything to try and find out what to do. So I think with, you know, your phone beside you now, you don't get the same experience playing point and click games, because you can basically just look up the puzzle solution in like a couple of seconds, as opposed to years ago when you had to spend like hours and hours and hours trying to figure out what to do. The couple of things on Broken Sword isn't too bad for that actually, although the goat puzzle is exceptionally difficult. And also I said in the previous video where I got stuck in Broken Sword 2 was the Glee's Gallery. But yeah, a little bit different. I feel like it could be my imagination as well, because I might have just been such a Broken Sword fanatic when I played this first, or when I replayed it recently as well, that I can actually get through it really fast. But it seems to be a lot shorter than the other games. But yeah, animation's great in it, graphics are great in it, sound is spectacular in Broken Sword. It's so good. The Barrington Falloon, or the guy that does the music in Broken Sword 1, I'm certain he does the kind of the symphonic sort of like very grandiose style of music in this as well. But I'd have to research that again. I did do a lot of research into Broken Sword 1 a while ago for actually my very first YouTube video was on Broken Sword 1, because I loved it so much. When I started my YouTube channel first, like 10-12 years ago, it was ages ago, I had like 17 subscribers for like 5 or 6 years, because I didn't really try and get subscribers right, and I just kept like uploading like random videos. But yeah, the first video I ever done was on Broken Sword 1, so I was exceptionally into Broken Sword 1. But the Broken Sword 2 then, because I kind of thought it was so short, I didn't go back to it as much. Broken Sword 1 I've replayed loads of times, but then like I have it on the Game Boy Advance, the DS, the Wii, you know, there's loads of different versions of it. This remastered version here, this is for iPhone. It's also on like Steam, I think, as well, or I don't really know much about Steam or Good Old Games, but this version here, it's actually identical to the PlayStation version. It just looks a lot better. So it's not technically identical, because Leibniz's law of indiscernibles would say for two things to be the same, they must share the exact same properties. But this doesn't. Or this is a sort of it looks to be a bit longer than the original version. But I think there's a more the screen displayed, I think I read, but it's much the same as the original version. With obviously it's the resolution is a bit better. It doesn't look as pixelated as the or whatever you call it, blocky, as the original game. So the visuals have an upgrade over the PlayStation 2 version. But to be honest, it looks very similar to the PlayStation 1 version, not PlayStation 2. It does have the faces coming in and out there, like it does in Broken Sword 1 remastered for the Wii, and also the DS version has it as well. But the Broken Sword 1 had a lot more like extra content, like with the bit with Nico at the start, and also other bits with Nico as well. But this one doesn't have any extra content at all. I don't think, anyway. I could be wrong, but I didn't notice anything when I played the new version. I didn't notice anything, significantly different than the original game. The cinematics look better, and there's a bit of that sort of cinematic panning as well. It looks to be a bit smoother, and the load times are so much better, because I played the original PlayStation 2 version, and the load times are unbelievable. They're like every time you go to a different screen, it loads that circle thing turning around. So that was a welcomed, kind of thing to have, not to have those PS1 loading times anymore. But I don't remember ever like complaining about the loading times when I was younger. Like, how long did it take like certain things to load and stuff? It didn't really bother me. I think I noticed it on Broken Sword 1 more than Broken Sword 2, but not that much. So that is a quick chat about Broken Sword 2, one of my favourite games ever. Absolutely love it. If you've played Broken Sword 2, let me know in the comment section below. And thanks for listening, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios. Alright, thank you for joining me. This is Gulpain, and welcome back to the Broken Sword Retrospective. And in this video, we're going to talk about, keep saying we, the Broken Sword 3. So I've already had a look at, or played, Broken Sword 1 and 2. And the only one I haven't actually tried yet is Broken Sword 2.5, but I'm saving that for a rainy day. So basically, I played all 5 games myself, obviously years ago with Broken Sword 1 and Broken Sword 2, and then I rediscovered Broken Sword then about 2009 when I got the Wii version, and but I had already played Broken Sword 3 already myself. I didn't really like it that much, actually. This was always been my least favourite, and when I replayed it recently, like, I really do like it. Obviously, it's just like the least best, because Broken Sword are all really good, but I find Broken Sword 3 the least best. I think Broken Sword 4 improved significantly over Broken Sword 3, as was said in the development by or the development notes by Charles Cecil, that they wanted to make didn't want to have the cartoony visuals anymore. They wanted to go for a more kind of less flat look and have some visual depth, so they went for the old 3D backgrounds, which was popular at the time with the kids, because the 2D stuff was kind of seen as the dark ages, and then everyone was going 3D. But then you have these like 2D games like Symphony of the Night, Broken Sword, Suikoden, etc. Those sort of games that came out like late 90s, early 90s, which retained the sort of 2D for the most part. Suikoden's battles are 3D, but for the most part it was sort of like 2D, and those ones have aged really well, where some of the early 3D games haven't. So in this retrospective, I'm going to go through the story of Broken Sword 3. I'm just going to read it from the fandom site, brokensword.fandom, and then speak a little bit more about Broken Sword 3. So the plot then goes as follows. George Stobart, the protagonist, and Harry Gilligan, his friend, are flying to the Congo Basin to meet a scientist. They arrive at the scientist's lab in time to see him gunned down by a pale, lanky man and his bodyguard. A postcard hidden in the lab prompts George to travel to Glastonbury, England, to search for a man named Bruno. Meanwhile, Nico finds out a hacker named Vernon Beeler has decoded the Voynich manuscript and been killed for it. Back at Nico's apartment, Bruno reveals that the stolen key was the Key of Solomon. Susaro would need it to access a special armillary in an ancient building the location of which is unknown. In time, they collect 2 more keys, like the Omega Key, and they determine that the armillary is in Egypt. Before this discovery, however, Bruno is captured by Cesaro. While in Glastonbury, George rushes to save an old man from a burning building. The old man turns out to be Bruno, and a former Neo-Templar. He claims that the Neo-Templars have been taken over by a man named Cesaro, who renamed it the Cult of the Dragon. It is revealed that Cesaro is the pale man who killed the scientist in the Congo. The old man says that Cesaro seeks to gain immortality through the use of the Earth's ley lines. Bruno is able to track the ley lines and believes that Cesaro may be going to Paris, France. Bruno leads George to an abandoned theatre in Paris. Inside, George finds Cesaro, a mysterious woman, and Flap, interrogating Nico. After Cesaro and the woman leave, George knocks Flap unconscious and rescues Nico. George learns that Nico was following the woman named Petra, because the woman had framed her for the murder of Vernon, a hacker she was due to interview. George and Nico continue to search the theatre, looking for the source of the energy Bruno detected. They find 2 keys. One has an Omega symbol on it, the other is the energy source. Outside, George is tased by an unknown assailant, and the energy key is stolen. At the armillary building, George and Nico arrive to see Cesaro forcing Bruno to activate the armillary. As it powers up, George and Nico subdue Cesaro. Petra arrives with a hooded man, seen twice before in the game, who proceeds to kill Cesaro with supernatural powers. It is revealed that the hooded man is the Grand Master of the Neo-Templars, thought to have been killed in the first game. With the armillary active and the location of a large power site displayed, the Grand Master sets off dynamite in the building as he escapes. Trapping George, Nico and Bruno inside, the only way for them to escape is for one of them to sacrifice themselves in one of the puzzle rooms. Bruno takes the responsibility, hoping to atone for past sins so that George and Nico can stop the Grand Master. George and Nico arrive at the power site in Glastonbury. As Nico confronts Petra, George tries to stop the Grand Master. He arrives in time to see the Grand Master absorb the energy at the site, turning him into a dragon and causing the ground beneath them to collapse. George finds a sword in the cavern, which he uses to slay the dragon and save the world. So that is just a quick brush over of the story from fandom. Citing my sources here so I won't be accused of plagiarism. And basically, my first impression of Broken Sword 3 was, well, I didn't really like the kind of the 3D environments because I was so accustomed to the 2D environments of Broken Sword 1 and 2, but I still accepted it because that's the way games were going. But however, I don't know, like walking George around and quite a lot of crate puzzles as well, and it didn't kind of stay with me as much as Broken Sword 1 and 2. Now, that could be a number of reasons, because when I played Broken Sword 2, like, that was the first one I played, like, I loved that game when I was very small. I was a kid, like, and I absolutely loved it, and it was so, like, you know, it seemed like it was so adult compared to, like, what I was used to, and it got me interested in history. It kind of shaped I'm certain that it shaped my career as well, becoming, like, a history teacher and stuff, well, a little bit anyway, but yeah, kind of, I think that's where I was. So I think that's why I have such a profound kind of memory of Broken Sword 1 and 2, because I encountered them when I was very young. I have a great nostalgia for them, and they were kind of such an influence on my life as well. But Broken Sword 3 then, I encountered Broken Sword 3 later in life. I think I was at university when I played it first, actually. So I didn't really spend a lot of time. I think I played it once and I never replayed it. I also never got stuck on it either, which I did get stuck on Broken Sword 1 and 2, and that caused me to, like, because I didn't have a guide, that caused me to, like, go around, you know, the different places and kind of really, you know, kind of really discover what the game was about and really kind of speak to every single character and exhaust every possibility. Whereas I didn't have to do that in Broken Sword 3. It seemed a bit more linear as well. You didn't have as much opportunity to get stuck, I think. But maybe that was, like, you know, part of the development. They didn't, you know, kind of want people to think this was like an old-fashioned point-and-click game. They wanted it to be like an adventure game. There is, like, action parts in it as well. There's a lot more, significantly more action in Broken Sword 3. Again, that was probably a development choice as well, in Broken Sword 3 than previous games. And one thing that always kind of stuck with me about Broken Sword 3 as well is the supernatural element in it. I didn't really like you know, like, the supernatural element in Broken Sword 3. I was like, you're fighting a dragon? What? I'll always remember, after I fought the last boss, the dragon, I kept doing it until I won. Then I was like, I felt really kind of let down that Broken Sword 3 was sort of like, it wasn't grounded in reality anymore. It was like, you were fighting a dragon. But then when I went back to Broken Sword 2, I realised that in Broken Sword 2 there's this supernatural element as well, where they're trying to, it only seems to be the end of it, where they break from reality and go to this sort of supernatural thing, with Tezcatlipoca comes out of the mirror, the smoking mirror, and basically, in Ireland we pronounce mirror as one syllable, not two, which I'm constantly told is the incorrect way to pronounce mirror. But Tezcatlipoca comes out and tries to kill the people here, but then goes back in. But it's only it's not really, it's alluded to the whole game, but it's not really a big part of the game. Broken Sword 2, like the supernatural element of it, until like right to the very end, and you're confronted with it. Whereas in Broken Sword 3, there's a lot more emphasis placed on this sort of supernatural element, which I didn't really like. I preferred that it was grounded in reality, which is strange because I normally love like supernatural things, like I love when zombies and vampires are in like shows and stuff. But the caveat to that then is that I don't think that it's actually, I think I was wrong there. The Broken Sword 3 is not like a mainly supernatural game. I still think it is grounded in reality. It does take a significant amount of kind of cues from other games though. It's exceptionally like Tomb Raider. I think with the puzzles in the game, like there's these huge puzzles, in like temples and stuff that are very unrealistic. Whereas in Broken Sword 1, I found that the puzzles that you were doing were sort of like very grounded in reality, or very kind of reality based. Yes, there was there was like secret passages, and there was you go down to the sewers and there's secret safe, but they all seem to be kind of like plausible. I think anyway, I could be completely wrong. They seem plausible to me, whereas this more sort of like spectacular, like overtly video game puzzle, where you go into like in Uncharted, where you go into this huge room, and like Nathan Drake is supposed to be an archaeologist, yet he routinely destroys like invaluable archaeological finds, which an archaeologist would never in a million years do. An archaeologist would brush like a little bit of dirt off something in order to retain its integrity, whereas Nathan Drake just like routinely just smashes things left, right and centre. So I felt that it was going towards that way. But then, I mean, you have to remember I always have to kind of ground myself as well, because I have to remember that this game is supposed to appeal to as wide an audience as possible. So then, appealing to me, just keeping it like 1 and 2 is not going to be sufficient for sales. So then maybe this sort of this more 3D kind of adventure based game would have brought it more into the mainstream. I don't think it did though. I think it sort of still retains a sort of niche kind of audience. And I don't know if sales must have been okay, because it was out on the PlayStation 2, I believe the PC and the Xbox, whatever you call it, Xbox original, the one with the Duke controller, that one, it was out in all those 3 systems. But then Broken Sword 4 then only seemed to come out on PC, so that was kind of strange, considering kind of Broken Sword seemed to be like in the mainstream. I don't know, maybe they didn't have enough sales to produce a sequel on the consoles as well as the PC, because this is very much like a sort of old-fashioned PC game. Well, I thought it was anyway. So that's Broken Sword 3, just a quick chat about it. Let me know if you've played Broken Sword 3 in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I'll see you guys in the next Broken Sword Retrospective. Alright, thanks for joining me. This is Gulpain, just back with the Broken Sword Retrospective. And I've been very much enjoying going back over the games that I played years ago from my youth, when I was a child, and into my sort of like teenage years, and then at university as well. And then basically I'm having a great time. So in this video I'm going to go over my thoughts on Broken Sword 4. I'm going to read the plot from fandom.com, just to, if anyone has never played the game, give you an idea of what's going on in the game. And then I'm going to finish off with how Broken Sword 4 is different to the other games in the series, and just kind of my thoughts on my own nostalgia and what I think of the game. Right, so let's go over the story then from Broken Sword 4. So after the events in Broken Sword, The Sleeping Dragon, George Stobart is running a bail bonds office in New York City with his partner, Virgil. George meets Anna Maria Presa, a girl with an old manuscript, who wants his help to decode it. A group of mobsters, after the manuscript, ransack Anna Maria's hotel room, as well as George's bail bonds office, and steal the manuscript. George discovers that the mobsters are led by Fingers Martino, who runs an old meatpacking factory. George sneaks into the factory and overhears a conversation between Fingers and Vincenzo Spallici, who has obtained the manuscript. George manages to covertly take back the manuscript, which he examines with Anna Maria. George figures out that the fortified city on it must be Istanbul, Turkey. In the Pasha Palace Hotel in Istanbul, a waiter named Mevlut informs George about a citadel that is located beneath the Topaki Palace. George and Anna Maria enter the palace and its catacombs, where they find a golden cherub. They take it back to the hotel. After a romantic night with Anna Maria, George wakes up without her, and Mevlut comes in armed with a gun. George is locked up in a cell, as he is suspected to be a terrorist. In his cell, George gets a visit from Father Nicholas and Sister Immaculata, who says that he should meet her on the roof. George escapes from the cell and meets with Immaculata, who appears to be Nicole Collard, his companion in previous installments. They return to the hotel, where George finds out Anna Maria has an apartment in Rome, Italy. In front of Anna Maria's apartment building, George meets brother Mark. After George figures out how to enter the building, Mark is not willing to give him a package that has arrived for Anna Maria. Inside her apartment, he finds a photo of Anna Maria, who, dressed as a nun, is standing in front of a Vatican wall. Another clue mentions a place near the monastery, Vatican, and he also discovers an airline ticket to Phoenix, Arizona. At a monastery in the Vatican, George covertly enters a water factory and finds Anna Maria's file in an office. After George is discovered and is being escorted outside by Cardinal Gianelli, Father Gregor tells him that Anna Maria used to work there, but that she has stolen a manuscript, and he hands over his business card. By showing the card to Mark, he is willing to help and gives George Anna Maria's package. From Mark, he learns about a qualcuno. The package contains a DVD with an interview with a man called Dr. Ronald Maynard, who has managed to make monatomic gold. Nico leaves to Phoenix to check things out. George gains access to the qualcuno, where he meets Dwayne Henderson, who he has met before in previous installments. Dwayne reveals that Spallici owns the club. Afterwards, George is caught for stealing a towel and tied to a chair. Spallici interrogates him about Anna Maria, and he overhears the recorded voice of Nico. Shots are being fired, so he thinks Nico has been killed. When he finds a way to escape, he goes for a drink, trying to forget the loss of Nico. The next day, still drunk, he arrives at Anna Marie's apartment, where Nico returns and George faints. In a flashback scene, Nico explores an old facility in Phoenix, where she is confronted by Spallici's men, but is saved by Maynard. However, Maynard dies after he gets locked in to the centrifuge, and Nico manages to escape by tricking Spallici's men. Back in Rome, Nico informs George that the monatomic gold is being used to build a weapon called the Ark. They return to the monastery and witness Father Gregor shoot Cardinal Gianelli. Nico is taken away and George is knocked out. When he awakens, the dying Gianelli hands over a manuscript in Latin and tells him that the Ark's purpose is to use the monatomic gold to destroy the unbelievers. George goes to rescue Nico and meets Anna Maria in the catacombs, who tells him her side of the story and that the Ark needs a human interface to be activated. George arrives at the ceremony to see Nico chained to the Ark, ready to become the new Angel of Death. Melvut, who is in fact ex-Turkish security and only pretended to be a waiter and priest, enters the scene armed with a gun, but Anna Maria points her gun at him as well. George succeeds in stopping the ceremony in time and frees Nico, but Anna Maria and Melvut shoot each other and die. So that is a quick mistake laden, I must say. A few typos in the old fandom article there, but if you're citing your source, you gotta cite the mistakes as well. Broken Sword 4 then it's actually, from what I've read, it's people's least favourite Broken Sword. After the previous game, and I believe Revolution made a loss on the previous game, Broken Sword 3, they just released this for PC. I did hear somewhere that it came out like in some territory on the original Xbox, but I don't think that's true. But Broken Sword 4 then, it seems less ambitious than the previous games, and the story is not, I don't know, not as good. It's focusing too much on like the mafia and stuff. I don't like that at all. The very start of the game, I remember playing Broken Sword 4. I used to have it as my holiday game because like obviously I played Broken Sword 1 and 2 when they came out first back in the 90s, and in the early noughties then when Broken Sword 3 came out I was at university, mid noughties or late noughties, and I played Broken Sword 3 on the PS2, and then I snoozed on Broken Sword 4. I didn't even know it was out for ages because it was on PC, plus I didn't actually have a PC to play it. So I got it, like, I think I got Broken Sword 4 in like 2013, like a long time after it was out. But yeah, and then I used to play it as like my holiday game because I kind of, not that I fell out of love with Broken Sword, I still really like the first two games and the third game as well. I have a renewed appreciation for that. But I didn't even know Broken Sword was out. That's how little, you know, like the fans of Broken Sword are made aware of it, or it must have had like a limited release, or I don't know. It's just very, very strange kind of marketing to, you know, for a big fan of the series to not know the game was out. And so I bought the game anyway, and I had a computer I played it on, a laptop that I got from university because they didn't have enough computers in the university for all the students, so they just gave us computers. And then I remember playing it on that, and I brought the computer on a holiday with me. I always remember being in Tenerife, and you know, like go out, do a bit of sunbathing, and then come back in when you're, you know, when you're kind of going in the shade in a while. And I played Broken Sword 4 for like a couple of hours, or if we were not doing that in the evening, and my girlfriend at the time would have been watching Geordie Shore or something, I was playing Broken Sword 4. So I remember playing it, and then I transferred the disc to a new computer I got, but then the I don't know, because it was such an old game, the new computer couldn't run it properly, so then I had to get a patch for it. All the characters basically, like some of them were just like, instead of being like polygon models or whatever, you know, the 3D models, they were just sort of like the outline of them, and they were just all coloured in black or white, so they weren't actually it was just like a graphical fault. The game seemed to run okay. The frames was like 2 frames a second or something, but yeah, it didn't it ran okay, but the graphics were all broken in it. So then I tried to download the patch, and then it wouldn't work, so then I couldn't actually get the game to work properly, so I could complete it. So I never actually completed Broken Sword 4. I did watch someone online, you know, go through the game and play it, because I was right at the end of it, but I didn't actually manage to complete it. So when I replayed it recently, I couldn't get it to work either, so I had to actually watch someone play it. So I believe it is available on Steam and GOG, but I don't have access to those because I don't have like an account on them, and I don't have like a Steam Deck or anything. I'm strictly like a console kind of player, like PS5 and Xbox and stuff like that. So I must check if it's out on those, but I did try to replay it, but I ended up sort of just watching someone play it, which wasn't as good. I still have my own copy of it, my battered copy of Broken Sword 4 for the PC, but now none of the computers I actually have now have like a disc drive. I do have an old PC that has a disc drive, so I could probably play it on that, but that was the one where I had to download the patch, and I don't know if I got the patch to work. So I'll end up trying it. But my memories of Broken Sword 4 are great. You know, it's only like maybe 10 years ago when I started playing it and got really into it, but it kind of, I don't know, I just couldn't get into it as much as Broken Sword 1 and 2. Again, as I've said before, it could be because when I played Broken Sword 1 and 2, you know, I was really young, I had a lot of time on my hands. I wasn't following a guide either, so I could basically, you know, I was free to check every single nook and cranny of every screen, and that kind of got me, you know, well acquainted with Broken Sword 1 and 2. Whereas by the time I was playing Broken Sword 3 and 4, you know, like, you have the internet beside you, and you can basically look up, you know, if you get stuck in a puzzle, you can just look up, you know, the solution and all that, so you don't have the same kind of jeopardy or, you know, like wonder that you have when you're playing like the games when you're younger. Or I could do what I just do now, and I just don't look at guides, and sometimes I spend like, you know, an hour or two running around trying to find what to do, and but then with Broken Sword 5 there's like a hint system as well, so I don't know, it's tough. But Broken Sword 4, playing as George and Nico, in the game. The new characters introduced are pretty good as well. Anna Maria kind of keeps you guessing. There is the the turn at her at the end, and it's nice to see kind of the old characters from the other games as well coming back in from Broken Sword 1 and Broken Sword 2, but it just doesn't have those moments that Broken Sword 1 and 2 has. Again, it's not as bad as Broken Sword 3, where it's very kind of actiony. Broken Sword 3 was like way too much, well, for me anyway, it kind of went too heavy on the action, whereas I prefer like the exploration and the story and kind of finding things out, which kind of Broken Sword kind of went back to its roots a little bit, where you point and click and you kind of instruct what to do, and you have to talk to people to kind of learn things, and it's not really clear what to do at first, so you kind of have to walk around different areas to find out, and then the puzzles are very intuitive as well in Broken Sword 4, a lot more than Broken Sword 3, in my opinion anyway. So if you've played Broken Sword 4, if you managed to get it to work on your PC, or if you've played it on Good Old Games or Steam, let me know in the comment section below. So let me know your thoughts on Broken Sword 4. I might do another video in the future after I've replayed the entire game and when I can get it to work. I just wanted to get these few videos out now so that I could get the conversation going about Broken Sword. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios. Alright, thank you for joining me. This is Gulpain, back with the Broken Sword retrospective, and this is the last game in the officially released Broken Sword game list, and this one is Broken Sword 5, The Serpent's Curse. So in this video, in this series of retrospectives, what I've done is I've gone back and played the old games back from my youth, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. As I said, the only one I couldn't get to work was Broken Sword 4, but that was like technical difficulties because it was only released for the PC, so I ended up having to just like watch someone play it on YouTube. But then I did actually get it to work on my old PC, and I did have a little bit of graphical issues with Broken Sword 4, but I did get it to work. So a little update on the previous video there. And this one then is Broken Sword 5. So this one is a real kind of, I don't know what you call it, return to form, or it sort of get Broken Sword back on track, I think, because Broken Sword 1, Broken Sword 2, fantastic. Broken Sword 3 kind of, went for more like technology, like the 3D kind of character and the 3D backgrounds and all that. Broken Sword 4 then went even more sort of into technology, like the presentation of polygons and stuff on screen, so it looks great. It still looks fine today, Broken Sword 4, but I don't know, I think this is the way Broken Sword should be. The sort of like the kind of 2D comic book aesthetic. I think that's much more sort of what Broken Sword is. Similar to other games like Monkey Island and all that, where Monkey Island was old-fashioned kind of pixelated. Then they put it into 3D and it just didn't kind of look right. Then they've gone back and put it sort of like, I don't know, the new Monkey Island looks really weird to me. I don't like the aesthetic of the new Monkey Island at all. I prefer the old, like, I don't know what you call it, MS-DOS or whatever, the old style pixel graphics of Monkey Island. And well, Monkey Island is different for me because the first Monkey Island I came across was the PlayStation 2 Secret of Monkey Island. So to me, Monkey Island is like a 3D game, whereas most people, it would be the original Monkey Island. But back to Broken Sword. So Broken Sword then, this is sort of a mix between, it still kind of looks like Broken Sword 1 and 2, where it's sort of like the backgrounds are kind of, the backgrounds are flat, the characters are moving around the backgrounds, but it's very, I mean, it's not like 3D, but it looks like 3D. It could be 3D, actually, I don't know. But the way it still looks like cartoony, and it still looks like, it looks like original Broken Sword 1 and 2. But obviously it's like, like from a modern aesthetic and a modern perspective. I think this game looks absolutely fantastic. This is the way I would like to play Broken Sword in the future. So, in the series of videos then, I normally go through the story of the game just to bring anyone up to speed. I read it from the fandom site. However, the fandom site has like some grammatical errors and some stuff that doesn't make sense, but because I'm using it as a source, I need to basically keep the grammatical errors and stuff. Well, I don't have to, but I just kind of, that's what you're supposed to do when you're reading from a source. So I will do that. And then I normally talk about the game and the differences between Broken Sword 5 and the previous games. And then I have a little chat about what I think of it. And then I ask if anyone likes the game, they would like to comment in the comment section below, so we can get a chat about Broken Sword going. So anyway, the story of Broken Sword 5 is as follows. The game begins in 1937 in Catalonia, Spain, when a painting is seized by a man and his fascist army. The game then jumps to modern-day Paris, whereupon George and Nico meet by chance at an exhibition at a Parisian art gallery, where they witness a man disguised as a pizza courier shooting the gallery owner, Henri Dubois, and stealing the seemingly worthless painting La Malédiction. Meanwhile, a priest at the exhibition, Father Simeon, claims that the painting is cursed. George investigates Vera security and finds the weapon used in Henri's murder, and Nico traces ownership of the painting. Comparing notes, they discover that Roman Mendowski is both the owner of the painting and of Vera security, and now lives in London. By phoning Waterloo Motors, a motorbike repair shop in London, he learns that his driver is a regular customer. Nico is also met by Tiago Marquez just as he enters the apartment. Marquez shows them a medallion with an Ouroboros, the symbol of Gnostics, a branch of Christianity persecuted in France by the Catholic Church in the 13th century. Back in the 13th century, they fled France after being ruthlessly persecuted by the Vatican. Marquez explains that fascist soldiers attacked his home and that his father died trying to save the painting. George and Nico head to London to confront the Russian. After convincing Medovsky's bodyguard, Shears, that they are from the insurance company, George and Nico are led into Medovsky's study. Medovsky denies any involvement in the robbery and murder, only interested in claiming the insurance, but George explains that he needs proof of ownership, at which point Shears interrupts to inform Medovsky of the presence of a Wilfred Hobbs. During the recreation of the crime by the incompetent inspector, Auguste Navet, they meet Richard Langham, an Interpol officer with art crimes, who warns them against pursuing Medovsky further. Investigating further, they learn that the whole affair is an insurance scam between Hobbs, Henri and Medovsky. George and Nico head to Bijou's apartment, who now admits that she, Henri and Hobbs were part of Medovsky's scam. Medovsky had commissioned Hobbs to make a forgery. He planned to sell both on the black market, but Hobbs had actually made two forgeries and passed one back to Medovsky. They were going to run away together with the original and sell to the Gnostics. Travelling to Spain, they discovered that the Marquis family home concealed a hidden Gnostic chapel and pieced together the path the Gnostics followed, escaping the Languedoc with the Tabula Veritas, and learned that the Tabula is hidden in a monastery in southern Catalonia. Reaching the monastery, they find the Tabula, along with the corpse of Gennan, who was trapped with it as he did not have Marquez's medallion. They recover the Tabula and are ambushed by Langham, who reveals himself as Gannon's grandson and plans to finish work to slay Jehovah, one of the dual gods representing order, and allow the new rule of Lucifer, who represents freedom and self-expression. They follow Langham to the purported Garden of Eden in Iraq, after convincing Shears to betray Medovsky. Reaching Langham in the middle of this ritual, Nico blows out a wall of the cavern. The white light that stems out of the crack disrupts Langham's ritual, and he is obliterated. Having stopped the ritual, Nico gives the Tabula to Eva in custody and be the leader of the Gnostics, and she returns to Catalonia. George and Nico almost kiss, but are interrupted by Shears with Donna Food the Goat. That last bit makes absolutely no sense, with Donna Food the Goat. Oh well. So that is a little bit about the story of Broken Sword from Fandom, the official site. Although, as I've said there's a few typos in that there that I'm not impressed with. But oh well, what are you going to do? You got to keep the original source. So Broken Sword 5 then, a real sort of return to the original kind of adventure of Broken Sword 1 and 2. I like the way they keep the focus on George and Nico as well. So from the first game, George meets Nico by by chance outside of the cafe in Paris where they meet, and then they're sort of like working together in Broken Sword 1, which is really, really good. Then in Broken Sword 2, then they're a couple and they're together, And then, unfortunately, stupidly, Nico gets kidnapped. I don't know why they keep kidnapping women in games, but so then Nico gets kidnapped, and then George kind of works to help her. Then they work together again. They split up, but they're still working together. By the time you get to Broken Sword 3, then there seems to be like a rift between George and Nico. They do work together in Broken Sword 3. Broken Sword 4 then has the introduction of Anna Maria. George and Nico are not together. I don't like that. I like when George and Nico are together. So yeah, I like that George and Nico are a couple and they kind of stay together. That's what I like in Broken Sword. I think that's the way it works well. I know, like in stories, you have to introduce conflict and you kind of have to split the characters up so that inevitably they can have that kind of back together moment. That was done exceptionally well in Lost, actually, when they'd have like the music playing and all the characters would after a long while of being absent with each other, they would come back together. So that's a nice kind of a trope to do in a game like this. So I did appreciate it, but I don't think it worked out that well in Broken Sword 4. So Broken Sword 5 then, it starts with George and Nico together, and they're at like an art gallery, and George for some reason has stopped being a bail bondsman and is now an insurance salesman. They also bring the thing of using your phone as well. I really enjoyed that in previous games, the way you could call people, and that's something that kind of I think they've retained in this game as well. You do go back to England in Broken Sword 5 after being in Paris. And I think I said in a previous video you go to Morocco, but it's not Morocco you go to. That was a mistake on my part, but I will correct it in the blurb of the video, the description of the video. But yeah, this game, there's really nice music in this game as well. The characters are sort of like there is the art critic guy Lane. He comes back into it from the second game, and there are previous characters that do sort of make a return as well in Broken Sword 5. And the goat is the character that makes the most welcome return. I think that was a real kind of fan service there. An additional goat puzzle, although it wasn't as difficult as the goat puzzle in the first game. But this one kind of focuses more again. It seems to be a thing in Broken Sword that as I've replayed all the games, I've noticed it, that you get, it's very grounded in reality until you get like to the very last part of the game, like the very last section. Then there's this like supernatural stuff happens. So at the end of Broken Sword 1, it's not really overt, the supernatural stuff. It's more sort of like guys in shrouds and kind of chanting and stuff. Broken Sword 2 then, you got the Tezcatlipoca coming out with a smoking mirror and trying to kill people. So that's like overtly supernatural. Broken Sword 3 then, you have the dragon, where the guy curls into the dragon. That's like really like, I don't think that's where the future of Broken Sword lies at all. I think the way they present the ground in reality sections, I think that's way better, if that makes any sense. Broken Sword 4 then, at the end of Broken Sword 4, there is like a supernatural thing as well, where, I don't know, if you look at Broken Sword 4, the characters are standing around, it's not really interacting with each other and all, but yeah, there is a supernatural bit then. And then at the end of this game as well, it's sort of, at the end of Broken Sword 5, it's sort of hinted to as well, but it's not. I think maybe they want to include some supernatural bits, because I'm all for including supernatural bits in games. I love like vampire, zombies, all that stuff. But Broken Sword, I think it's the more history focused and the more investigation focused, I think is better. And the small bit of supernatural stuff they do introduce, it is kind of reserved for the end of the game. And it is kind of like, it's not a huge part of the game. If it is, it's introduced very late, and it's kind of brushed over, and then the next game starts, and then this like supernatural occurrence that should be investigated by like governments all over the world, George and Nico just seem to go, yeah, that happened, let's go to the next adventure. So it is kind of strange, like, if you think about it. But I think these characters, the two main characters, Broken Sword, George and Nico, I think they haven't really evolved as much as maybe they should have. Or a lot of people think that they should sort of just be arrested development, just have their, like, the way they were in Broken Sword 1, that is the kind of way they should act throughout the games, because they're roughly the same age they were in Broken Sword 1 as they are in Broken Sword 5. They might be a few years older, but they're not like 20 something years older, like. So I think they should keep them in that sort of state. I like that the best, actually, when they do that. The developers and the writers, they don't like age the characters by their real age. Like, if George was 25 in Broken Sword 1, he should be like, I don't know, was it 97, 2007, 2017. He should be like 50 something now, maybe in his 50s or something, but he still looks like he's kind of late 20s, early 30s, which I think is best for the Broken Sword series. Like Mario's like 25 or something, so Mario's been 25 for like 50 years or 40 years, or however long Mario's been out for. So Broken Sword 5 then, totally recommend Broken Sword 5. Probably, I don't like Broken Sword 5 as much as 1 and 2 because they're sort of like on their own, but Broken Sword 5 would probably be my third favourite of the series, then 4, then 3. Even though I do like all of them, they're all really good in their own way. It's just I think the story in Broken Sword 5 kind of takes it back to the kind of mystery of the first two games and sort of grounded in history as well. Whereas I know Broken Sword 2 and Broken Sword 3 do that as well to an extent, but not to the same extent as Broken Sword 1, 2 and 5. Anyway, that's just my opinion anyway, and you know, opinions are like bumholes, everyone has one. So let me know your opinion in the comment section below. So if you played Broken Sword 5, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Adios to the Broken Sword retrospective. Alright, thank you very much for joining me again. This is Gulpane back with the Broken Sword retrospective, and in this video we're going to talk about, well, I'm going to talk about Broken Sword Shadow of the Templars Reforged. So I got the Switch version recently and I've been playing through it, and I like it a lot. However, there's a few things that I don't like about it, and I think those are kind of common problems from what I've been reading on online. So basically, Broken Sword Shadow of the Templars Reforged was released in January 2025, and I have the Switch version, and basically on the Switch version you can change from the new improved graphics back to the original graphics by pressing the minus button on the Switch, or it's the one of the analog, or the what is it, the buttons that you can change the camera with, one of those as well. So you can, just like other games, just like Monkey Island and I think Alex Kidd, one of those games, you can change back to the old graphics. So it's basically, it's a shot for shot remake, so it's not a complete overhaul, or it's not like Broken Sword Shadow Templars Director's Cut actually did a better job of the remake, I think, than Reforged. Even though Reforged, the graphics are superior, like the backgrounds look a lot better. A lot of times they're brighter and they give a bit of perspective more, like the drawings kind of make more sense. But the original game, the drawings are far more cartoony. They look hand drawn. In the Broken Sword Reforged, some of them don't look hand drawn. I don't know. It's just weird. They just kind of look AI or something. But it might be just my imagination. But yeah. So you switch between the old graphics and new graphics. Some of the sections are brighter, but some of the sections that they've changed are way darker than the original game. So, for example, in Ireland, when you go down to the cellar to get the gem, Pilgrim's Gem, you can't see anything. Well, I couldn't see anything anyway, and I had to basically change back to the old graphics to see the switch on the wall to press it, or to the lever on the wall to do it. And also, if you look at the in Ireland as well, in the bar, the guy that's sneezing, you can't really see his drink. I just noticed these little things. You can't really see his drink unless you switch back to the original graphics. So because it's just kind of, they've darkened it a good bit to kind of, I don't know, maybe to make it more natural, like make the light more natural and stuff. And I do realize that it's kind of ironic saying that I couldn't see in the cellar, because you're not supposed to see in the cellar in Ireland in the bar, because you're supposed to open the door, the trap door, in order to let the light in. But I mean, I couldn't see it was so dark I couldn't. In the original you can see, so you can actually switch something. You can't see everything in the room because you need the light. But yeah, that was kind of just a small annoyance to me anyway. But in general, I'm enjoying the new graphics. I actually switched to the old graphics and I didn't even notice, and I kept playing with the old graphics, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be playing Broken Sword Reforged here, because I could always go back and play the original 1996 version. But yeah, so a lot of the graphics are redone. The character animations are redone as well. They seem to be animating a lot more than they did in the original version. And they look different as well than the original version. Like they've obviously the original version has like sprites, so they're all kind of a bit blocky and stuff. But I really noticed the pixelated look when Broken Sword Shadow of the Templars version for the Wii and the DS one. Although the DS one doesn't have any voices, so it's a little bit inferior. It doesn't have the voice acting. But the Wii version has the character portraits, which look great, but they look different than they look significant different than the old blocky. Because when I was playing Broken Sword back in when it was out first, or a little bit later, sorry, I kind of had an idea in my head of what the characters look like, and then I thought the character portraits didn't really look like some at all. And then the new graphics has kind of what the character portraits look like, but not really. So my main problem with Broken Sword Shadow of the Templars, well, the main good thing about it is the audio. The audio has been, it sounds amazing. It sounds way better than the original, and a lot better than the Wii version as well. But so whatever they've done to the audio, it's fantastic. It doesn't, there in the original version there was like, I don't know, whenever George and Nico spoke, there seemed to be another sound with them. So there didn't seem to be like a break of sound in between sentences. There was something with them. So they've got rid of that. And in the Wii version as well, they didn't have, the audio didn't sound, it didn't sound very good. But in this version, the audio sounds absolutely top drawer. But my biggest problem with the game is that they haven't reforged the director's cut version. They've reforged the original version, and it doesn't have the Nico parts, like the extra Nico parts where you control Nico, or it doesn't have the extra scenes. So I said in the previous retrospective that when I reviewed Broken Sword Shadow of the Templars director's cut on Wii, I said that those didn't add much to the story or anything, but I was completely wrong. They add loads to the story. So I was looking at kind of reviews and stuff as I was going through like the, like kind of little bit of small bit of research for the game. I mainly did my own thoughts on the game, like, but just like small bit of online research, just reading like what people say about the game. And I think I took that at face value. So I didn't actually notice, because I played original Broken Sword and then I played the DS and the Wii versions after that. So I didn't notice, going back to Broken Sword Reforged, I noticed how much it takes away from the game to not have, number one, Nico narrating the opening, and also her sections at the start. I think they add loads to the game. So I was completely wrong. So past Gulpain, you are completely wrong. Future Gulpain is right. So yeah, so the not having the Nico bits in this is really, for me, taking away a lot from the game, and I'm not liking it, or I'm not enjoying it as much as I enjoyed Broken Sword Shadow Templars director's cut. So I think the inclusion of the character portrait was very good. I really like that, because that's like a thing to do in RPGs as well, when you have the character sprite on screen, or the character polygon, but then you have like their 3D portrait, or sorry, their 2D portrait as well. So I really like that. And I do like the redone sort of animations they've done as well. They've kept the original kind of concept animation, but they've made it 16:9, and they've just made the animation a little bit better, like of the cutscenes. But the animation of the characters is better. But I think I prefer the original spritey kind of blocky look. That might be just because that's, the original Broken Sword is one of my favorite games. But yeah, I think I hope they keep doing this, actually. So I'm going to like give Shadow Templars Reforged 2 thumbs up, because I want them to keep doing it for the Smoky Mirror as well. So the Smoky Mirror did not get a significant upgrade like Shadow Templars got. It didn't get extra scenes, or it didn't get like additional dialogue from Nico or other characters either. Whereas Broken Sword, the original game, did. When the Wii version is a different game, if you think about it, than the 1996 game, or even Reforged. It has so much more extra content. I'd much rather play that than the original version now. And unfortunately, this Shadow Templars is the original version, so it's just like a shot-for-shot upgrade. It is impressive, like, that they've just kind of made all the screens, just upgraded all the screens. But yeah, so that's I don't know, it's just taken a little bit away from me. But I hope they do the rest of the games, or make a collection so that I can play them all on Switch. Because at the moment, I can play the first one on Switch, but then the second one I have to play it on PS1, the third one on PS2 or Xbox, and then the fourth one on PC. if I can get it to work. And then the fifth one is fine. They can leave the fifth one the way it is. So if you've played Broken Sword, Shadow of the Templars Reforged, let me know what you thought of the game in the comment section below. It's very similar to Broken Sword 5, so you could play Broken Sword Reforged and play Broken Sword 5 after it, and it seems to be in keeping with the comic book style, which is, I think, the way forward for Broken Sword. The PS2 sort of 3D graphics, I don't think they fit Broken Sword very well. Like, it's still good. Like, I still like Broken Sword 3 and 4, but I think I prefer the cartoony style. But maybe like the next game they could. Well, I know the next game, Broken Sword Parvizel's Stone. They've gone back to Broken Sword 5 sort of animation style, so that's pretty good. But I still like the kind of 3D one as well. So I don't know. Whichever one to bring out next, I'll play it anyway. So thanks very much for joining me. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And thanks for listening to the Broken Sword Retrospective. Adios.